All right, episode 77. Today we're going to talk about lead generation, to automate or not to automate. We're going to break that down right now.
Welcome to the only real estate podcast worth listening to, with your hosts Nick Good, Matt Kelderman, and Brian Force. Combined, they have 26 years of experience and have sold over 1,500 homes. Join them each week as they bring you everything you need to know about real estate. And now, here are your hosts, Nick, Matt, and Brian.
All right, episode 77. Today we're going to talk about lead generation, to automate or not to automate. So we're going to break that down.
To automate or not. I'm getting so close on the timing.
Yeah, you are.
Of not like doing the intro fade out. One of the days I'm just going to figure out how to actually do it the right way.
It shocks me every time. Like every time it's just like dun,
It just
dun,
gets
dun,
right.
yeah, done.
All right, before we get started on that, if you're wanting to take 10 plus listings, like if you want more seller clients, that is the coveted lead source for real estate agents. If you're wanting to take more sellers like the Herd Group here, as well as the Good Home Team, just like us, go over to touracademy.com/take10, TEN, sign up for the webinar on how to take 10 plus listings every single month. And then right after that, sign up for Tour Academy for $1. And then you'll be a part of our Tour Academy Mastermind. You'll get access to all of our courses that we're having. Brian is in the middle of building out a new one that we are going to build out a new one that we talked about last night
100%, man.
on our Tour Academy
We
call.
went all over it. Like, if you guys don't jump on these real, like Matt, like I literally just pulled up my actual Google Ads account. I had to like block it out so it didn't have my personal information on there. But like, we're just showing you what we do in our businesses every day, like in a very real way.
And you're beating, so your average cost was around $4
Yeah.
for Google pay-per-click leads, where I'm using Boomtown and mine was $7.80 or something like that.
Something like that. It was pretty high.
So you're almost getting one more lead, you know.
Yeah, we get to double the leads, and like that's basically what we're spending on Facebook leads, which is crazy because Facebook leads are more like voyeuristic,
Yeah.
whereas Google, they are actually searching specifically for that, so the leads are usually a little bit higher intent. I'm actually going to pull up my account here and just see where we're at right now.
So go over to touracademy.com/take10. Sign up for that Take 10 listing webinar, and then sign up for Tour Academy. And then if you're listening to our iTunes or on Spotify, I know on iTunes you can leave us a review. Please go ahead and do that. And go over to the only real estate group worth being a part of on Facebook and join that movement there. I'm having a conversation right now with Phil Mickelson's manager. Remember that guy? I met him in Telluride when we were on the Telluride trip.
Oh yeah, I was
I
thinking,
actually don't remember because I spent most of that trip in the hospital.
Because you had COVID.
Yeah.
I had a magnificent time on that trip.
I did too.
Hey, no, I'm just saying I didn't have a good time. All in all, I had a blast until the last 24 hours or so.
I was introduced to tropical flavored White Claws in Colorado.
Yeah, that was where you discovered
amazing.
tangerine.
Yeah, it's delicious.
That was where Brian, and turns out he was really sick, but that's where he passed out in the hot tub. And then lady was afraid that you were going to drown in there.
It's amazing how fast like pulmonary edema, which is what I had, can come on because I felt really good when I got into the hot tub. By the time I got out, I was in pretty bad shape, dude. So I'm not saying the hot tub was to blame, but I don't think it helped.
So let's talk a little bit about everyone's favorite topic, lead generation. And this came up, part of this came up on our Tour Academy call.
Yeah.
That we wanted to dive into today, is that, is it better to automate some of these follow-up sequences in there or not, right? Leave it up to more manual, whether it's yourself, whether it's your agents on your team, which is the better option, right?
Well, and I'd like anybody who's watching this who has comments on this to obviously comment too, so we can answer some questions while we're on the show. But we had this conversation with another agent on our team, and Brian and I obviously have it in reference to our businesses all the time about exactly what points do you automate and what points still require the agent. Because when I used to train, I would tell new agents all the time, as they would get two things. One, the easiest way to make money in real estate is to sell shit to real estate agents, right? Like that's the first thing. And I didn't coin that phrase.
I was going to say the same
It's
thing.
super true, right? Yeah, exactly. And also, you have this abundance of time at the beginning of your career that you're trying you're trying to avoid having to do the hard work, and we're always looking for automation and magic pills and that kind of stuff, so we get sucked into it relatively easily. But if everything could be automated that is real estate agents we want automated, Zillow and Amazon have just put us out of business. So we kind of need to be happy that there's certain parts that still need to stay on our plate. And that's always the biggest question is, what's freeing up my time to do the shit that I'm really good at? And what am I trying to automate that needs to stay on my plate? And I think that's the question a lot of real estate agents don't answer very well. And they make the wrong move in automating certain points of their follow-up and lead gen.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm also DJing today, so I'm like messing with Matt's camera and stuff while we're doing this. But you're 100%, and this is where we kind of got off a little bit on the mastermind yesterday. Is you can't. We have this thing where we're like, we just hate Zillow. We hate, the big companies coming in and trying to, lower our commissions, drive prices down, and just all that type of stuff. But then we're always kind of seeking the next shiny toy in our own real estate business. And it's like, you add all those shiny toys together, and if they work really well, someone's just going to spend more money on them and put you out of business. You know what I mean? So I definitely agree. And like, I am Mr. Automation. So obviously I definitely agree that there are tons and tons and tons of parts of your businesses that can run like a machine without you having to be so hands-on all the time. And I'm a huge champion of that way of thinking. But where we kind of got on this conversation yesterday was you were talking a little bit more about automating some of your lead nurturing and things like that. And that's where I think we there's a lot of different perspectives on it. But my philosophy is that no matter what you automate, don't automate yourself out, in the sense that like whatever skill you have, is that market knowledge, is that objection handling, is that whatever it is, right? You can't automate that part, and you'd never want to, because then you basically replace yourself and you lose your unique selling proposition. So you can automate to an extent, but you're the talent. You need to be the talent. You know what I mean? So like, you got to keep something in there.
Well, and the biggest thing about this is we're generating a ton of leads, right? So you get to a point where people start falling through the cracks. And so does it make sense to automate? At times, probably. But the question that we'd brought up on the Tour Academy Mastermind call was that, for different lead funnels that you're building,
Yes.
right? Automation may actually have a negative effect on it.
Yes.
Unless it can handle, like, unless you can build it, customize it all the way, right?
Yes.
It can't be like, what we were talking about on the call last night, where if it was a certain type of request that they're having, like
Sure.
let's say it's 123 Home Street,
Yeah.
right? But you've got a generic messaging and a generic voicemail drop that goes out. Does that make it less authentic? And
Right.
so they're just like, it's not as strong.
I think there's a balancing act, right? You the way I think that you think about it is your automation should mirror your desired outcome, if that makes sense. So we'll just throw out a couple of different lead generation techniques, right? If you're just running, let's just say you're running ads on Facebook advertising your own listings, okay? Sounds very specific, but it's really not, because people are voyeuristic on Facebook. Anybody that comes across your ad for your listing on Facebook, your audience might be somewhat targeted, but for the most part, they weren't looking for houses. So when they call about that particular listing, your value isn't necessarily how much you know about that house, right? Because they might be looking for other homes, you know what I mean? Your ability to nurture them there, to provide value, is going to be based on, good continuing questions, really finding their needs, doing a needs analysis, and then maybe passing that on to an agent who's a market expert or something. So you could certainly automate, I think, that type of lead generation, because your skin in the game, or like what you really need talent-wise, isn't really huge up front because of the way in which you're generating those leads. Now, there's a flip side of that, is like we run a lot of Google search ads now, right? And our strategy is very specific. We run Google ads to specific neighborhoods, specific niches, very, very targeted, and that helps us drive our cost per lead down. When somebody calls from one of those Google ads, let's say they're looking for a specific neighborhood in Dallas, I need to make sure that someone like Kelderman gets that lead, because that is a market expert's job, is to have all the answers about that particular area, right? So that's a type of lead generation I would never want to add a lot of automation or secondary, stuff to, because I really need my talent handling those leads right from the get-go. And I think that's kind of the same with like seller leads, home valuation leads, and stuff like that. You got to be able to have an articulate conversation with those people right up front, or you're going to lose them as a lead. But there's some more voyeuristic type leads like Facebook leads and stuff that I think you can definitely automate a lot of the nurturing process and still have it be really effective.
I feel like it's all relative too, because here's the thing, right? Like if you're sitting there like listening to some of the cost per lead conversation, the cost per lead conversation is different depending on your ability to generate that lead, whatever. Typically, the more expensive your lead costs, the more hands-on approach it's going to need.
Yes.
Right? If you're getting, and look, if you're running command ads and you're the person who's like, I'm getting command ads at 75 cents a lead, all right, that's awesome. But I'm also going to tell you that that lead is not somebody most likely who is closing tomorrow that you could probably put on a longer automation. Yeah. As opposed to somebody who receives something directly from you about their house. They call a number. They've actively chosen to pick up the phone to call a number to say, hey, I want to talk to Matt about this situation, whether it's to bitch me out or whatever it is, right? They've now taken a much larger step than some 75-cent Facebook lead's going to take, right? Therefore, my nurture process to them is going to be a little bit different than it is to the Facebook lead who, I don't even know if it's you, man.
Yeah. It's a higher level of intent.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go back to like the Google pay-per-click leads that you're generating right now. Let's just say it was homes for sale, McKinney, Texas, right? Okay. Do you have it to where once it rolls into Boomtown, right? Do you have a automation trigger that would say, let's say it's an automated text, right? So the number one thing that I was really talking about on this call is if I were to automate these like text messages we're generating, we've got 50,000+ leads in there. Yeah. You know, trying to revive them, also trying to nurture the ones that are coming in because we're just from 3 lead sources alone of 682 leads. That doesn't include the other ones, right? And not everyone can follow up and can hit their, you know, the 10 days of paying type deal. Sure. So, is it better to run like a outsourced ISA program that will guarantee to contact them through text and calling and email? Yeah. Was it, what did I say, 16 times within the first 10 days? Sure. Right? And then 76 total times over the next 12 months. But if it comes into your system right now, again, McKinney, Texas homes for sale, do you have an automated text that goes out and say, you know, hey, Brian, thanks for, it looks like you're looking at McKinney homes. Sure. Is that the only area? Are you only interested in McKinney, Texas homes for sale? Something like that. Do you have anything of that type of automation that goes out?
I don't, but honestly, like we could definitely set something like that up. And here's the thing, that might, you know, you got my brain kind of turning now. We might be able to do something like that because we do have a 10 days of pain. Our agents need to reach out within 5 minutes or get out of my life because you're not calling fast enough, right? But I need that human touch. Up front, I just said, "Get out of my life."
Get out. Beat it.
But then they apply. If they can't get a hold of the person after 3 calls and a text, then we apply the 10 days of pain smart drip. I could easily set up automations that are specific, that correlate to every single different type of lead funnel that we have too. I don't know what the effectiveness of that would be long term. It's definitely something to think about, though. I think that's a good, because people prefer to be texted. Is that fair? Do people prefer to be texted now instead of called?
What have you guys found? I think you just get a different person responding to the conversation, right? Because I've had an opportunity to see the exact same list of people and their response rate to 2 completely different forms of communication, and it doesn't typically seem to be the same people, right? So, for instance, there are people who truly appreciate being texted over being called, especially in certain lead services, right? And there are same people in that exact same lead source that if you text them, they're like, this is the biggest invasion of my personal privacy ever. And I'm like, it's a phone number, G. Calm down.
They're saying that on text messages?
Oh, there used to be this whole book called The White Pages. It had everybody's number.
I have stopped posting them in our group, the only real estate group I was being a part of, because I feel like I don't want the group just to go to like who can just outdo each other with like shitty text messages. But dude, some of the stuff I get back, it's almost like some people, my favorite one is like when somebody texts you back and they're like, this isn't Matt, haha. Like they somehow tricked me, right? That's my thing is I was trying to reach a person and you tricked me into reaching the wrong person. I've thrown off my whole day, bro. They're just so proud of themselves.
Coming together.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm sure there's some stats on this, but I like to use just what's working in ours. And this is, again, we brought this up on the mastermind call, is texting or calling better. Most of our business is still coming from calls. Yeah. Right? We supplement it with text messages, right? So that definitely helps. So, that was one of the things we were looking at is, do we use, and I posted it in the Only Real Estate Group worth being a part of, is using like a Shout Boss or Structurally, right? Shout Boss is a program that that will send a voicemail drop and a text message, and you can run these campaigns to try to keep the engagement there, right? And Structurally is an artificial intelligence texting bot
Okay.
that can have what seems to be real lifelike conversations.
Is that legit though? I feel like there are some times where we get a little overzealous with the AI thing.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that, like, I believe it will be there.
Yeah.
Just like the laser disc led us to the CD that led us to like our
there's
phone.
something behind it.
I just feel like right now we're with an AI, at least the stuff that's available to us for this type of systems in real estate.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's not an agent out there who has some one-off stuff or maybe knows. And if you do, please comment down below, because we're always interested in the AI side of things. But the reality is, like, I struggle to believe that's true, that it can have a human sounding conversation, because I have those every day, and even I get confused in what being a human sounds like, right?
So I asked the question, anyone
sure you
have
do.
experience using Shout Boss or Structurally? And these are just this doesn't include like an outbound calling ISA, inside sales caller. And so Eric Hatch, who, by the way, I mean, that dude up in Idaho is selling a ton of real estate, right? I mean, that guy, everything he touches seems like it turns to gold. And so he said he loves Structurally. So I asked, what is it about Structurally that you guys love? He's like, and they already have inside sales, right? So they have the calling down. They have the ISA department down.
But I think while you don't have the ISA department that you used to be in love with, that we've talked about a couple of times, you are still an ISA style calling based team.
We are from the agent side.
From the agent side, yeah.
And so, Eric Hatch mentioned we have some of the top ISAs in the country, and frankly didn't think we needed the AI of Structurally. We were wrong. We put their AI first on the leads that didn't respond to us after 200 plus attempts. These leads were, for all intents and purposes, garbage. And he's like, from there, we resurrected 3 deals in less than 2 months from their efforts. So the AI is really good. It doesn't tire. It's empathetic, and it isn't expensive. So what is not to like about it?
I don't think that there's anything not to like about it. So that's. I think this is where we need to really refine the conversation a little bit. Is how far do we want to take the automation, right? I think there's certainly a place for automation and for AI and for like responsive, bots and things that can learn and stuff, but. It's how far down the rabbit hole do you want to take them? Because what's going to happen is, here's the deal. Anytime you automate something, you will lose some conversions, because no system is perfect, right? So there's going to be a churn, is what I'm saying. So let's say you turn everything over to AI for every lead source and every funnel and all that type of stuff, right? The AI is not going to please everybody. It's not going to get every conversation right. It's not going to have the nuance of conversation to convert some people, so you're going to lose some, right? Which means your cost of acquisition will go up, right? But what goes down in place of that, right? Can your agents just be more focused on other things? Can you do something like, can they go close more deals because they have more time back, right? Like, those are the conversations maybe to have. Okay, so like if I have 500 leads and I'm going to have my agents handle all of the follow-up, all the nurturing, all that stuff manually, and they're all kind of market experts, so they should be able to convert at a higher level. Like, what will our productivity be out of that, in a certain time window? Versus AI, which will likely be lower, but if I can overload it with more leads, it'll give me the same results, and then I can have my agents going and doing something else. So, like, there's a trade-off. I don't think there's anything not to like about it. It's just, I when it comes down to it, I think there are certain types of leads and lead funnels that lend themselves very well to automations, and some that don't. And so, where I think that this conversation gets a little bit more complex is, agents want an easy way out of a lot of stuff sometimes, right? And that sort of discounts their skills as an agent. When we do direct mail to sellers, I don't automate any of that. I want a human being to be on the other end of that lead the entire way through, because I feel like those are more nuanced conversations. When we just run regular listing advertisements where we generate $1 per lead or whatever for somebody who's happened to stumble across our website or whatever, I could automate that pretty far down the rabbit hole before somebody needs to take over, because for the most part, those aren't going to be high intent leads right out of the gate. They're going to have a nurturing process. So I think that's what I'm trying to say is there's no one answer to all of this. But you want your higher intent leads to have human contact a lot earlier, if that makes sense.
How many agents do you actually think are automating these processes in general? Like if we were to say, are we saying 10%?
About the same amount who are crushing it. I mean, it's
Yeah, it's
I mean,
80-20 rule, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would even say here's the thing is like we've got actually a couple of like video killers on here between Matt and Christina. I had a Zoom call with Matt the other day down doing Braunfels, and Christina's got a YouTube channel that is blowing up.
Yeah.
She might be like 50,000 subscribers or something like that by now. But the point is like they're like, it's free leads. They're lead generating, right?
Yeah.
The amount of time they're putting into their videos, their content, they're generating leads. So like, I think to Brian's point, to get these high intent leads, they don't come with no time on task or no dollar amount spent. You're either going to spend a shitload for the lead because you have to have somebody else automate all these systems we're talking about and do all these things that we're talking about and provide you with a hot seller lead who's raised their hand, which, by the way, you're going to make a lot less money on in every scenario, whether you're on a team or doing it yourself. Yeah. The percentage is going to go way down. And or you use, and this is what I always used to tell the other agents, is like, your mother really loves you, but the reality is the real estate business doesn't care about you right now, and you have an abundance of time. So use that time to do things like Joe Rosen did and document your journey and start growing something that does push out high intent leads like YouTube does earlier in your career and get started with some of those things. And that was a huge mistake I made. I just paid for leads my entire career, and it was incredibly expensive and made me super not profitable.
So that may even be the better question is depending on the type of business you're going to run. Like, look, when you pay for leads, right? When you're generating the type that the Herd Group does, the Good Home Team, any of these more of a colder internet lead style business, right? Automation may be one of the only ways to go.
Of course.
But if you're running like Christina Smallhorn and some of these others where they're doing it from YouTube and their videos where they're probably not getting as many inquiries coming in, but the ones that are coming in, their conversion rate is through the roof.
Yeah, I think that's one of the other things to think about too, and one of the things to kind of discuss is automation is not free, right? Like, so if you're talking about making your life easier, there's either a dollar cost to that or a tremendous time cost too. Like even if you're not paying so if you're paying a secondary, let's just say you're talking about you want to go pay a secondary company to go follow up with all of your kind of database of leads, right? Well, that's going to cost money, but it's going to give you time back. Or you want to set up your own automations and build your own bots and do all that type of stuff. Well, that's going to cost an exorbitant amount of your time, right? And you have to become an expert in something. Like, I'll just tell you right now, like we had this conversation yesterday about, you run advertising through the Boomtown platform, and we used to as well, and our cost per lead was relatively high. I went in and now I took everything back in-house as far as our Google leads, and we cut our lead costs in half. And that's a pretty cool thing. It also took me about 80 man hours of work to figure out how to do that. And I'm just scratching the surface, right? It's not something that, I'm in a fortunate position because I have a lot of great business partners that go out and produce. And then my job is to give them more opportunity. So I have the 80 hours to go and focus on those things because that's my job. But a lot of, the individual agent for the most part has to wear a lot of hats. And so they don't have that ability to go automate. And so I think that what I'm trying to say is half-ass automation is even more expensive.
Yeah,
because it takes some of your time and it takes some of your money and it doesn't work.
Brian Fox's comment, which I'll read here in a second for the people who aren't watching this, is dead on how you should be thinking about it, right? He uses AI for reviews, follow-up, and customer questions. Mm-hmm. He's not found a way to close a lead with AI, but he's increased customer satisfaction through AI and decreased his man hours by 30%.
That's really good.
That is the kind of shit you need to be looking for when we're talking about leverage. Stop trying to leverage yourself out of what you're awesome at and leverage off the stuff that doesn't matter. It matters, but it doesn't matter for you to be doing. Yeah. And then you get that 30% of time back. And the reality is, if a lot of people understood what 30% of your time back meant in your day, it's life changing. I mean, it's unreal, right? Yeah. It doesn't take huge numbers, right? Whereas the agent who's like, I want to automate myself completely out of my business. Why?
Yeah,
right?
Then anybody could do that.
Yeah, it's just dumb. Yeah. So I love that, Brian. Thanks for sharing that.
This is a little side note on it, is agents need to find vendors like Brian. By the way, I started using Brian on our inspections and has started to take more and more of the business from some of the other people. Yep. One, I was listening to a mastermind yesterday with Jay Kinder and John Kitchens, and they talked about kind of hugging the book called, I think it's Hug Your Customers or something like that, where they talk about
It's inappropriate.
yeah, no, you can't do that anymore.
6 feet.
Where it talks about, it's really building a referral-based business and connecting with people. But how Brian earned your business originally is by
Yes.
sending your son the
so
wrestling
cool.
mask,
I ran across that last night, actually.
right?
Yeah.
And then I think he also did like a video from one of the wrestler dudes.
It
or
wasn't
whatever.
even. Here's the thing: is it wasn't even he sent my kid anything. He went to Cameo and had Rey Mysterio like do an
Yeah.
actual video, which, like I said, made me look like Father of the Year.
So awesome.
Right? And again, Brian has a VA through, you guys ought to throw the link out, but through Justin Nelson, he got his VA through that. Dan got it through there. I mean, we all have
I think
VAs.
he's got a couple of VAs.
And that's what I'm saying. And Brian could chime in here in the comment section if he feels like, kind of share it a little bit. But I would hope that his VA automated all of that somehow. That it was his idea, it was his thoughtfulness.
Right.
But he sent a message to somebody that said, "Hey, go on Cameo. Here's the kid's name. Here's what he likes.
Yep.
Right. Here's my credit card number. Go pay for it, whatever, and then send this video over." Right. Like, I actually hope that was the automation,
Sure.
because here's the thing: is it proves my entire point that, like, you need to be genuine in your action. You need to be genuine in your social media posts. You need to be genuine in the cards you send. But you don't need to be the one who does it, right? Like, it can be a genuine thing, and you can also automate that to somebody else.
I think that, but I mean, that whole thing was just awesome, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's something that we hadn't really touched on yet, which I think is super important, is if automation is going to be part of your lead gen efforts, it should be the last part of your entire business that you automate, right? When it comes down to it, we're just talking about time. We're just talking about your time in the day. You automate things to give yourself time back, usually, right? If you're automating things because you hate doing them, well, I get that, right? But like, if you're automating your lead follow up and some of your client stuff, like, you might just hate real estate and maybe you want to go do something else, right? But what I'm saying is that, like, try to automate the things that are not dollar productive first, right? Like, our biggest producers on our team, they're not the least bit concerned about automating any of their lead generation or nurturing. They're concerned about automating all the shit that happens after they get clients, right? Like, what is my transaction automation? What is my referral thank you automation? What is, how do I appear to be more on top of things than I probably really am in real life, But like, that's, they enjoy using their expertise to go convert business. So I'm not saying it's not beneficial, but there are other things that you should be automating first.
Agreed. If you're yes, all the way.
Like your process, like your transaction process is probably the first place to start.
But what I would also, as owner, team leaders and owners, right? You're running a team. My job as a team leader is also to help my agents convert more business, right? So what I'm looking at from an automation side, which is what we talked about and went more and more and more into depth on the Tour Academy Mastermind call, is that I am wanting to try to get easier opportunities or at bats for our agents, and with that is one thing that I just came to mind, and I'm replaying what Eric Hatch had mentioned, where it structurally the artificial intelligence texting system worked for him, where Matt, you and I talked about this on the call, is that if we were to send out a large group of text messages, right, and you get a large response rate, if you don't respond back to a text message within, in my opinion, I think if you let it go an hour on that,
It's got to be pretty quick.
It's got to be
yeah,
relatively
right.
quick.
That's a different speed to lead, because if we're sending text message and someone responds back quick, and then all of a sudden you go ghost on them, right? That's where the AI software may make sense to try to at least keep it going until you can take over.
That I actually think, overseeing some of the text message type of automation over the past 14 to 16 months that I've been able to see, I do believe that, especially when, because here's the thing is with the type of, especially the lead source you and I are talking about, there is some automation that could go in that, because there are some very typical responses.
Yeah, I
right.
agree.
That I think the right type of AI could pick up on, because that's essentially what I do. Other than the people who raise their hand in that automation, they're like, no, I do want to talk to you at the time that you specified in the text. Almost everybody else, it's a follow-up question. Not interested, not whatever, right? And then the follow-up question is, I understand. Is there a time in the future? Whatever, right? Like, but the majority of my responses are canned, right? And they're auto responses almost to just the thing I see all the time.
Is there anybody like company that's doing that at a really high level right now? Like, let's say I send a text message to 1,000 people, and like 50 of them say like, "Leave me alone, not interested," and then 20 say something that I can really like go off of. Is there an AI out there that's like, okay, this person said no, let's turn this off, and then this person said yes, let's keep this
So
on?
I think structurally, from what and I went through a demo of theirs. We should actually probably have them on, not on a show, but we can bring them into the only real estate group we're being a part of, as well as we need to have Eric Hatch in there.
Yeah.
Probably just on the show in general, but structurally is the best one from what I've seen out of that. Shoutboss is not. Shoutboss is just, it's not artificial intelligence on that. Shoutboss is just a sequencing campaign of, all right, Brian Force registers on the Good Home Team website, and then it then immediately puts the sequencing campaigns in place of a voicemail drop right away, a text message, an email. Then day 2, it's a text message and voicemail. Day 3, it's just an email. Right, you're building out those campaigns, but if there's a response that comes from it, all it does is shut the campaign off.
Yeah.
Right, and so if you are overwhelmed with responses, and you're slow to get back, again, that's where not only are you burning money on not calling them, but if you don't respond back on the responses, then you're burning money.
Yeah,
well,
it's just
and
all
that's
waste.
and that's where Brian was talking about the automation costs money, and I think this is where a lot of agents, like we always do in this industry, we don't give stuff enough time to breathe, right? We set up all this automation and we're like, it didn't get me any deals in like the first 2
Not
weeks.
rich yet.
Brian's full of shit. This doesn't work at all, right? And in reality, we just continue in this real estate agent cycle of spend money, need to immediately make 3 times that money in order to earn it back so we can maybe keep it going for a couple of more months. And the reality is, like, I asked Brian this when he set up the automation last year. I was like, dude, why isn't everybody doing this? And he's looked at me, he's like, because it's fucking hard. Yeah. he's like,
Nobody wants to blow up 8 Boomtown accounts
there's
before they
like
figure out how this works.
8 or 12 steps for things that have to happen, and then when it breaks, I've got to go in there and find it and like all this other stuff, right? And I think there's 2 things. I think people hear people talking about automation and think it's just a lot easier. Just like, we closed our 100th deal today. I would have never in a million years thought that like I'd be a part of a team that closed 100 transactions. Now seeing what it takes to get there by the end of August, dude, it was never going to happen with me before. I had no ability to put all that stuff in place. And I think at some point we have to admit to ourselves, one, we just don't stay in our own lane enough and really understand the goals we're trying to accomplish. And we don't understand what goes into real automation, right? There's just a lot of steps. And it's your $4 lead that you got through Facebook in order to automate it, that becomes an $8, $10, $12 lead when you start talking about all the automation that goes into it. And then you're just like, oh, these people stop responding to me. So then you dick the lead around and you don't do anything with it. Now you've got all these $12 bills sitting in your freaking in your Boomtown or whatever your CRM is, doing nothing, and you've forgotten about the money, right? You've forgotten about how much you spent on it. So now this person's just been in there forever, and you're just going to blow them off. They go as a dead lead in your CRM. You're out of real estate 18 months later, right? That's the slow death of a lot of agents.
Good question, right? Like if I've got basic automation with like, Boomtown calls them smart trips, Brivity calls them auto plans, everybody calls them something. Like if I've got that to kind of remind me what to do every day, send some basic emails and text messages on my own and stuff like that, and I have a growth engine that can generate leads with at least decent intent, I mean, it kind of begs the question, why would you even want more automation? Because what you could do instead is just go build a team around that, right? Whether your team is more agents or whether your team is, you said, you were exploring using a nurturing company for $5 a lead yesterday. You could get a VA for $5 an hour that you could literally train, that has real intelligence, not artificial, to just man that whole account, right? Like, so there's some, and it could be flexible over time. They could grow and learn, and like, there's some things I just don't trust robots.
But the company that we were talking about yesterday it's called Conversion Monster, and they run it's an ISA department, right? So that's different. Try to trust me. Try to train a virtual assistant on making outbound calls or even inbound. It's not going.
I don't think calls work.
Yeah.
I think to Brian Fox's point a couple of comments ago, he uses Pulse, but he says my VA has access to his text message. They have a maximum time limit on replies. Right? I think this works really great with we're talking about automation. I don't think automation is phone calls. And I heard James Festini say this one time. They're not leads, they're inquiries. This is the same thing.
Yeah.
Automation, you need to take the phone call part of your unless you're talking about the TC side of it.
Right.
Like somebody calling the title companies and the lenders and other industry professionals that speak your language, you've got to get the phone call part out of your automation. That is not something you should automate.
Yeah.
Just stop
That's
it.
your value.
Stop trying to automate. Like Nick, I'm not saying you can't have an ISA team. I'm not saying larger teams can't hire an ISA. Most agents are not looking at it through that lens, right? If you're a team who's thinking about hiring an ISA, you've had a lot of conversations, talked to a lot of people, you built a big team, you know a whole bunch of shit, right? If you're a real estate agent thinking you can automate yourself out of the relationship or the conversation, it can't happen. Stop trying to automate that part.
Yeah.
And if you're one of the rare people who can, great, don't listen to me. I'm speaking to the 99.8%
Well, yeah, it's the same.
of people.
It's like, if I'm giving you advice, hey, don't become a professional sports gambler. You're going to lose money. Right. Yeah, there's still some people that do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking to those people.
But most of those people what you're mentioning that you're saying not to do it, they're not generating enough leads.
Of course.
Right? And they're trying to do it for themselves because they're wanting more deal flow, but they don't want to make the calls themselves. Like Justin Nelson over at Sphere Rocket says, is like, you're trying to teach a VA to do something that you have never experienced or that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And now you're going to try to train someone to make phone calls that you've never done, right? So that doesn't work. And so what we're looking at when we talk about automation is the automation from a team owner perspective is twofold. Run on the lead gen side, which is what we're talking about, is to help try to keep deal flow or more at bats, right? Because the number one thing on the team is we need to create at bats, right? Then our training to our agents needs to get them so precise and so good and so strong at swinging and hitting and making connections, whether that's a home run, single, double, or triple. That's where we're talking about the automation part.
We talked about this yesterday, and I stumbled into a really great analogy that I wasn't intending to make, but it's just because I've been watching baseball like 5 minutes prior to our conversation. But what Brian and for those of you who aren't regular listeners of the show or whatever, Brian and I are business partners. Brian runs a lot of the automation side. Me and other agents go out and close those deals, right? What Brian has been able to do that's so effective is it's just like the Fox pitch tracker, dude. Brian figured out that I can't hit low and inside and high and away. So what he's done is he's started to groove me more pitches in the 6 zones where I can hit and eliminated the 3 or 4 where I can't. Right? And what that's allowed me to do is it's allowed me just to narrow my focus down. Now, as an individual agent, you don't have a Brian. Sorry. Right? But the reality is what you do have is you have to have some understanding of what you're going to have success at. If you're walking around bitching and complaining that you don't understand, like, I don't know what lead generation to do. I don't know what that's a huge problem. I was like that for years. Yeah. I'm telling you, you got to figure it out. Because the second you can narrow your focus down to a couple of things like Christina and Matt do with YouTube, or other agents do with agent referrals, like Chris Wise on our team does with her flower mound groups, right? Like when you find your niche thing, it makes, when we talk about this time efficiency and getting your time back, that's what allows it to happen. Because when you're scatter shooting at every single lead source, you're not really getting anywhere. You are, but it doesn't feel that way. And you might wash out before you actually have any success. And that's the worst thing that could happen.
I think that's a super good point to make as well about, if you are an individual agent right now that has visions of building a team, is you just will not have the ability to grow if you don't have at least some level of mastery around the things that your agents are going to face on a day in and day out basis. I'll tell you right now, like the biggest value that I bring to our team and a couple of one of the huge values that you bring as well has nothing to do with my ability to build background automations or lead generation or anything like that. My biggest value I think that I bring to our business partners is I'm just there to help you with all the shit that comes down the pipeline all day, every day. I've already had probably 20 different phone calls with our agents today just about something, right? And the reason that I'm able to do that is because I was willing earlier on to go eat the plate of shit that comes with going through the parts where you got to master some of that stuff, right? So I can now sit in the room and give you advice on don't say that, say this. I can give you on here's how you deal with this situation. I can coach you and guide you through all that type of stuff. I will tell you, if you're trying to grow a team and your philosophy is I'm just going to throw a whole bunch of leads at people and throw a little automation in there. We hear this all that, we've had this from business partners that we're not culture fits that we parted ways with.
It's guaranteed to work.
They'll say the leads are bad. They'll say the systems suck. Really what
they'll join your team, but they'll leave too.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, if you can reel them in with a whole bunch of leads, but when they can't convert them because you're not there to help guide them through the process, and be there and be their support system and help them grow as agents, which is tremendously important. You're going to have a lot of trouble along the way really sustaining that team environment.
Agreed.
That can be tough.
So the conclusion on this,
In conclusion,
before we get to the conclusion,
pre-conclude.
look, you want to take more listings, just like we all do. So go learn it from one of the best ones out there. Go over to touracademy.com/take10, TEN. Sign up for the Take 10 Plus Listings Every Single Month webinar. We go over the lead sources. We go over conversion strategies. We go over appointment setting. We go over all of it.
I've realized that I'm going to get this fixed. I'm going to get the lower third to pop up. We don't. Tour Academy, TORE, Tour Academy, TORE, Tour, /Take 10. It used to pop up, and I'm going to get it to pop up.
Everything's
I feel
just
like people are thinking we're saying tour like PGA Tour.
Yeah, everything's just a play on the only real estate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
TOR.
kind of our bit.
That's our bit.
So go over to Tour, not Tour, Tour,
Tour.
TORE
Do
Academy.
you legit say tour when you say it for real? You say tour?
When I'm on the PGA Tour,
Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Are
what
you
I
one
said.
of those
Tour.
people that
It's
says
tour.
like what as well?
No, what?
No, it's
Drive me
what?
cra-
I say tour.
Whip.
So-
Cool whip.
touracademy.com/take10, TEN. Sign up for the webinar, and then go over to sign up for Tour Academy. That way you can hear all these ramblings, because there's a lot more gold in it on the other side,
The other
right?
side.
A lot deeper on that. So with the conclusion of this, though, it's, in my opinion, one, if you're a single agent, you don't really need to automate everything. You're probably not generating enough leads, right?
Probably shouldn't.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't, because what you should be focused on is actually doing the 10 days of pain, doing the follow-up, because you're not generating enough leads. And more than likely, you're doing it on your sphere, and they're going to know that it's not you.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
I automated some of my LinkedIn, and my sphere, the people that already know me, they know those weren't my messages.
You at all.
Right? But if you're generating a high volume of leads, you're wanting to build that team model out, there definitely needs to be a level to it, because there is something on the team side where one of the problems with team owners and team leaders is they like to cherry pick deals and give their team members all the shit.
The shitty team owners and team leaders like to do that.
We know a few of those.
I know
a
some.
few of those.
We'll do a show on calling them all out.
We should. And with that, Brian,
Exactly.
take
Be
us
the
out.
most watched show. So you definitely, I think, should automate on that side. And so I'm looking. Look, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. We'll probably we need to have Air Catch on,
Okay.
talk about structurally, because I'm interested in that. Conversion Monster looks great, and so definitely want to automate on that side of things.
I love it. We do need to have more guests on. So if you guys want to drop a comment or post in the group, we do this every week, and it's been the three of us for a long time, because we've got so many different cool things, to talk about and going on in our business, and it's it's different every week because we're facing different stuff. But we certainly love to get more guests. We haven't been avoiding it. We just we like to get really, really, really good guests, and our guests haven't always been super interesting. So if you guys have suggestions on who you'd like us to reach out to, we certainly.
Did you just say they have not been super interesting?
No, I said some of them. I didn't mean like all of them, but like I'm just saying, like we've had some phenomenal guests in the past, and then we've had some that I thought were a little womp womp, and I'm not gonna like name names or anything. I'm just saying like that's one of the reasons we've been kind of avoiding the guest thing. But if you got cool people that you want to have on, we'll definitely reach out, and we got it. You guys don't know there's a whole nother mic and camera in this room that we never go to. This guy, Brian Fox says. Alrighty, dude. What do we think?
I thought it was great.
Nick's texting. Matt went to the bathroom. I'm here. I don't know how to wind this show down now.
I didn't have to go to the bathroom, so I had a little stomach procedure, just an outpatient thing, and all of a sudden I was sitting here and I've got this little like cold compress on it, and this some bitch started leaking.
Oh, it started leaking?
It started leaking. And I was like, what is happening to my body? And then anyways, so I had to run out of the room real
Matt's
quick.
usually the guy that ends the show.
I know.
felt so lost.
I walked in and they were like all trying to
when
figure
he got
it
up,
out.
I was kind of stumbling.
Yeah.
That's why I stumbled on my words. Matt just getting up, walking out.
I know. It was like all of a sudden I was
All
like trying to
right,
figure out
show
what the
is
hell's happening. So I don't know. Anyways.
Well, thank you for hanging with us, Bob Hafer. Well, give us like a description of who this person is too. We'll definitely Google it and reach out. We'll start naming random and be like Jeff Goldblum. Well, we know who he is, so we definitely need to get him on.
If
What
Jeff
is
Goldblum
Bob?
comes on it.
Tell us, send us a message or drop a comment. Let us know what Bob Hafer or or whatever does, and a little bit about them, and we'll reach out and we'll try to get some more awesome guests on.
Yeah, Christina hooked that up.
Yeah. Also, yeah, you guys hook us up. You do the work. And we'll have them on the show. We started the podcast. You guys do your part.
I want
got-
Christina on the show.
I actually messaged her and then she end arounded me, so I'm gonna message her when we get off here and be like, why won't you come on our show?
Yeah.
She's hearing this right now. Just
We
as
do.
Megan.
We need
some more YouTubers
We
because
need more
that's something we're
YouTubers.
super interested in right now
and
too.
we need more strong females on this show as well. I
No
have
more
noticed
Jeff
there's a
Goldblum.
lot of dudes in this room every week.
Yep.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
There's been a lot of comments on that.
I'm tired of looking at all your dumb testosterone-filled faces.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, go over to touracademy.com/take10, sign up for the webinar, and then go to iTunes. Leave us a review, please, and we'll see you next week.
Take us out, Brian. It's just so sad.
Hey, thanks for checking out another episode. If you wouldn't mind, go and join our Facebook group, the only real estate group worth being a part of. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and give us a review on iTunes. It helps us get our content out to more awesome real estate professionals like you. And last but not least, if you are on Call of Duty, my gamer tag is Brian the Force. I'll see you there.